It was a brutal attack. A woman who attacked her husband with a kitchen knife, stabbing him 17 times on her way to prison.
A woman from Aberdeen will live the rest of her life behind bars. This after killing her husband.
Many might assume that the most sinister criminals are all men, but it's shocking to discover that women can be just as dangerous. The pages of history are filled with female criminals who defy expectations. Some of these women are so dangerous that they must be kept under the strictest security to prevent them from harming anyone outside their cells. Curious about who the most dangerous woman behind bars is and how severe her crimes were? Join us in this thrilling episode as we reveal the world's most dangerous woman in captivity. Joanna Christine Dennehy. The infamous Peterborough ditch case was a series of fatal incidents that happened in Cambridgeshire, England, on March 2013. The 3 victims, all men, were fatally injured, and their bodies were dumped in ditches outside Peterborough. In Hereford, 2 other men were also violently attacked but survived, and the assailant was Joanna Christine Dennehy, a woman from Cambridgeshire. Her first victim was Kevin Lee, who was a property developer, landlord, and her. The second was Łukasz Slaboszewski, a Polish man who met Dennehy through their shared interest in drinking and drugs. John Chapman is the last of the unfortunate trio, and he was one of Dennehy's housemates. Slaboszewski was attacked sometime between March 19th and 29th, 2013. Both Lee and Chapman were fatally attacked on March 29th. Lee's body was found the next day near Newborough, dressed in a black sequined dress. Slaboszewski and Chapman's bodies were found on April 3rd near Thorney, both with stab wounds. After the crime, Dennehy was driven by her friend Gary Stretch to Hereford, where she randomly attacked 2 more men, both of whom survived. Both victims were walking their dogs. Dennehy even stole one of the dogs. Another man in the car, who was there against his will, was later cleared of any involvement. Dennehy was born in August 1982 in St. Albans, Hertfordshire, and grew up in Harpenden. At the time of the crimes, she was an absent mother of 2 young children. She specifically targeted men, telling an acquaintance that she didn't want to harm a woman, especially not a woman with children. She even said she wanted to take the lives of 9 men in total, hoping to be like Bonnie and Clyde. Dennehy confessed that she attacked men for entertainment, telling Stretch, "I want my fun. I need you to get my fun." She later told a psychiatrist that she found her crimes to be addictive, saying after her first act, she got a taste for it. On November 2013, Dennehy admitted all 3 assault cases and 2 attempted assaults. Her sister Maria wasn't surprised by her guilty plea, saying Dennehy liked to be in control. Dennehy was held in HM Prison Bronzefield, where psychiatrists diagnosed her with psychopathic, antisocial, and borderline personality disorders. During her trial at the Old Bailey in London, Dennehy laughed and said that she had pleaded guilty, and that was that when questioned about her decision. She even stood up in court, declaring that she didn't want to be controlled by anybody. On February 28, 2014, Justice Spencer called Dennehy a cruel, calculating, selfish, and manipulative serial predator and sentenced her to life imprisonment, with an order that she should never be released due to the premeditation of each attack. Spencer added that Dennehy was sadistic and lacked normal human emotions. Dennehy became the 3rd woman in the UK to receive a whole life sentence, after Myra Hindley and Rosemary West. 2 men, Gary Richards, formerly known as Gary Stretch, and Leslie Layton, were also tried for helping Dennehy, and they both refused to testify in their defense. Richards was found guilty of attempted fatal assault, and Layton was found guilty of obstructing justice. They were sentenced to 19 and 14 years in prison, respectively, while another man, Robert Moore, received a 3-year sentence for assisting an offender. After the trial, it was revealed that the probation service was monitoring Dennehy at the time of the crime because she had been convicted of assault and owning a dangerous dog. It was later found that the staff handling her case were inexperienced. While awaiting trial, Dennehy was kept in segregation at HM Prison Bronzefield. Prison staff discovered an escape plan in her diary, which involved seriously injuring a prison officer, cutting off the officer's finger, and using it to bypass the prison's biometric system. Because of this, Dennehy was placed in solitary confinement from September 2013 until September 2015. She later claimed that the isolation made her tearful and upset and led to self-harm. The High Court of Justice rejected Dennehy's claim that her human rights had been violated, stating that isolation was necessary due to the danger she posed. After her trial, Dennehy was returned to HM Prison Bronzefield, but her story was far from over. In 2018, she sought permission to marry her cellmate, Haley Palmer. That same year, Dennehy and Palmer made a pact and attempted to take their lives together. After this incident, in 2019, Dennehy was transferred to Low Newton Prison in County Durham. Upon her arrival, she allegedly threatened to attack fellow inmate Rosemary West, prompting West's relocation to another prison, though the government denied this claim. By June 2020, Dennehy had entered a relationship with another inmate, Emma Aitken, who was serving a 12-year sentence for her involvement in a fatal attack case. In May 2021, it was reported that despite Palmer's release, she and Dennehy still intended to marry. Katherine Mary Knight. Katherine Mary Knight, born on October 24, 1955, is a notorious figure in Australian criminal history, recognized as the first woman in the country to receive a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Her notoriety stems from the brutal assault of her partner, John Charles Thomas Price, in 2000. Katherine's early life was characterized by instability and anger, which set the stage for her later actions. At school, she was known as a loner who maltreated other children. Despite her aggressive tendencies, she could also display periods of good behavior, even earning awards for her conduct. However, these glimpses of normalcy were overshadowed by her deep-seated anger and aggression. At the age of 15, Katherine left school without basic literacy skills and began working at a clothing factory. Soon after, she secured a job at a local slaughterhouse, a position she relished. Her attachment to her butcher knives was so strong that she hung them over her bed, a habit she maintained until her arrest. Katherine's relationships were marked by fights and control. In 1973, she met David Stanford Kellett, a co-worker who struggled with alcohol dependence due to traumatic experiences from his previous job. Katherine was fiercely protective of Kellett, often stepping in to defend him during fights. They married in 1974, but their relationship quickly turned problematic. On their wedding night, Katherine tried to choke Kellett because he fell asleep after they had only been intimate 3 times. This incident was just the beginning of a tumultuous marriage filled with abuse. Their relationship deteriorated further after the birth of their first child, Melissa Ann. Kellett left Katherine, unable to endure her outbursts any longer. Katherine's mental health continued to decline, leading to a series of disturbing incidents. She was diagnosed with postnatal depression after being seen violently shaking her newborn in a pram. Shortly after, she placed her 2-month-old daughter on a railway track just before a train was due. Fortunately, a homeless man rescued the baby in time. Katherine was arrested and admitted to a psychiatric hospital, where she revealed her intention to take the lives of Kellett and his mother. Despite these alarming revelations, Katherine was released and continued her pattern of abusive relationships. In the years that followed, Katherine's behavior escalated. Her relationship with David Saunders, a minor she met in 1986, was marked by jealousy and abuse. In one horrifying incident, she fatally wounded Saunders' dingo pup to demonstrate what would happen if he ever cheated on her. Despite this, the couple stayed together for 2 more years and had a daughter. However, their relationship eventually ended after Katherine finally attacked Saunders in the stomach with scissors. Katherine's final relationship was with John Price, a father of 3. Despite being aware of her violent past, Price allowed Katherine to move in with him in 1995. Their relationship was tumultuous, and in 1998, when Price refused to marry her, Katherine retaliated by videotaping items he had taken from work and sending the tape to his boss, leading to his dismissal. Their relationship ended temporarily, but they later reconciled, though Price refused to let her move back in. In February 2000, Katherine's aggressive behavior towards John Price reached a horrifying climax. After a series of altercations, She badly injured Price in the chest. On February 28, Price went to Scone Magistrates Court to obtain a restraining order to keep Katherine away from him and his children. That afternoon, he told his co-workers that if he didn't come to work the next day, it would likely be because his ex had fatally attacked him. Despite their warnings that he shouldn't go home, Price feared that Katherine might harm his children if he stayed away. When Price got home, Katherine was not there, but she had arranged for the children to stay at a friend's house. Price spent the evening with his neighbors before returning home and going to bed around 11 in the evening. Earlier that day, Katherine had bought new black lingerie and recorded videos of her children while making unsettling comments. Later that night, she arrived at Price's house while he was asleep. She watched television briefly, took a shower, and then woke Price. They had an intimate moment, and afterward, Price fell asleep. The next morning, at 6 in the morning, a neighbor noticed Price's car still in the driveway. Concerned when he didn't show up for work, his employer sent someone to check on him. The neighbor and the worker knocked on Price's bedroom window to wake him, but saw blood on the front door and called the police. The police broke down the back door and discovered Price's body, while Katherine was found unconscious from taking a large number of pills. She had attacked Price with a butcher's knife while he was sleeping. Blood evidence showed that Price woke up and tried to turn on the light and escape. He managed to get outside but either stumbled back in or was dragged inside, where he eventually passed from his injuries. Later, Katherine withdrew $1,000 from Price's bank account using his ATM card. Price's autopsy revealed he had been aggressively attacked at least 37 times, with many wounds penetrating vital organs. Several hours after Price passed, Knight skinned him and hung the skin from a meat hook on a door frame in the lounge room. She decapitated her victim and cooked parts of his body, serving the meat with vegetables at the dinner table. She placed the food with notes bearing the names of Price's children, preparing to serve his remains to them. A third meal was discarded in the backyard, possibly because she was unable to eat it. This has been used to support her claim of not remembering the crime. Price's head was found in a pot with vegetables, still warm, indicating that the cooking occurred early in the morning. Katherine later arranged Price's body with his left arm over a soft drink bottle and his legs crossed. She also left a handwritten note on top of a photograph of Price. The note, covered in blood and small pieces of flesh, claimed that Price had assaulted her daughter, but the accusations in the note were unfounded. Katherine's initial offer to plead guilty to unintentionally causing Price's passing was rejected, and on March 2, 2001, she was charged with deliberately taking his life. She pleaded not guilty. When the trial started, Justice Barry O'Keefe offered the 60 potential jurors the option to leave due to the unsettling evidence, and 5 chose to do so. After the witness list was announced, more jurors withdrew. The jury was eventually selected, and Katherine's lawyers discussed the case with the judge, leading to a one-day delay. The next morning, Katherine changed her plea to guilty, and the jury was dismissed. The reason for Katherine's guilty plea was never explained, and she did not fully accept responsibility for her actions. During sentencing, her lawyers requested she be excused from hearing some details, but this was denied. When Timothy Lyons described the crime, Katherine became very distressed and had to be sedated. On November 8th, Justice O'Keefe declared that the gravity of the crime and Katherine's lack of remorse required a severe sentence. He sentenced her to life imprisonment without parole and marked her papers as never to be released, making her the first woman in Australian history to receive such a sentence. In June 2006, Katherine appealed the life sentence, claiming it was too harsh. Justices Peter McClellan, Michael Adams, and Megan Latham rejected the appeal in September, with Justice McClellan noting that it was a terrible crime, almost unimaginable in a civilized society. In prison, Katherine has taken on a leadership role among inmates at Silverwater Women's Correctional Center and has acted as a mediator in disputes. Rebecca Butterfield. Rebecca Butterfield has been called one of the most dangerous women in Australia and has been kept in prison for years because authorities are afraid of what she might do if she's ever released. How did she get such a terrible reputation? In 1997, she went to jail for a year after she violently attacked a taxi driver instead of paying her fare. 3 years later, she ended up in jail again after she attacked a neighbor who was trying to stop her from hurting herself. She was sent to jail and went on to commit her most brutal crime yet. In 2003, she violently attacked a fellow prisoner with a kitchen knife 33 times, fatally ending her life. The wounds were so horrific that they covered every part of the victim's body. For this crime, she was sentenced to 12 years in jail and became eligible for parole after 7 years. She did not get parole, and even though her sentence should have ended years ago, prosecutors keep getting orders to keep her in jail. They've convinced a judge 3 times that she needs to stay locked up for the safety of the public. Why? Simply put, she is still as violent as she was when she first committed her crimes. While in prison for taking the life of her cellmate, she attacked both guards and doctors who tried to help her. In one incident, she threw hot tea and her colostomy bag at them. She also attacked another inmate with hot water and tried to harm a nurse who wanted to take her blood. These actions made her look very dangerous. NSW. Supreme Court Justice Robert Allen Hume has said that she might hurt people if she's released. He noted that nothing seems to have changed about her tendency to use sharp objects. Her violent outbursts are unpredictable and not always triggered by obvious reasons. Mental health professionals who have treated her also share concerns. Her former psychiatrist called her the most dangerous woman in Australia. Several doctors agree that she has antisocial and borderline personality disorders, and possibly schizophrenia. They believe she should stay isolated from others. If she were moved to a forensic hospital, they worry she might harm staff and patients. In a previous encounter with a doctor, she reportedly said she would end the doctor's life when I got out. It seems that everyone, including Rebecca herself, believes that releasing her could lead to someone getting hurt. If prosecutors can't get another order to keep her in jail and she is released, she would have to follow strict rules. She'd need to wear an ankle monitor at all times, be constantly watched, and be banned from having any weapons, among other things. Whether these measures would be enough to keep her from being a danger is another question. Antoinette Renee. Renee Antoinette was a police officer with the New Orleans Police Department. She applied to join the NOPD in early 1993. Chuck Hustmeyer, an author, noted that Antoinette was caught providing false information on her application and failed 2 psychiatric evaluations. Despite these issues, the NOPD, facing a severe shortage of officers and struggling with lower pay compared to other cities, gave her another chance. The department also hoped that increasing the number of African American officers like Antoinette would help ease racial tensions in the city. She was hired on February 7, 1993, and graduated from the police academy on February 28. Though Antoinette graduated near the top of her class, her time with the NOPD was largely unremarkable. Her colleagues found her shy, uncertain, and lacking in the skills needed for effective policing. Her superiors considered sending her back for additional training as early as August 1993, though she did occasionally receive Officer of the Month awards from local organizations for her community work. On November 25, 1994, Antoinette responded to an incident involving Rogers Lacaze, a known criminal involved in illicit substances. It was believed that this was their first encounter, though Antoinette later claimed they had met months earlier. Antoinette initially tried to help Lacaze, but their relationship soon became romantic. Despite knowing that Lacaze was involved in criminal activities, Antoinette continued the relationship, putting her career at risk. The connection between Antoinette and Lacaze became apparent to other officers who saw Lacaze driving Antoinette's car and even moving her police vehicle at an accident scene. Antoinette sometimes introduced Lacaze as a trainee or nephew during police calls. There were also reports of Antoinette and Lacaze using a police car to rob motorists. During the Department of Public Safety and Corrections investigation, Antoinette was reluctant to discuss her relationship with Lacaze. Although she claimed they were not romantically involved, it was later revealed that they had a very intimate relationship. Antoinette was also questioned about buying ammunition for Lacaze, which she defended as a normal activity for a police officer. On March 4, 1995, Antoinette and Lacaze visited Kim An, a Vietnamese restaurant owned by the Vu family. Antoinette was working as a security guard at the time. As the restaurant was closing, Cho Vu went into the kitchen to count money, and then entered the dining area to pay Ronald A. Williams II, a fellow officer who was working security that night to earn extra money. When Cho saw Antoinette approaching the restaurant, she became suspicious and hid the money in the microwave. Antoinette used a key she had stolen earlier to enter the restaurant and forcefully herded Cho, her brother Kwok, and a restaurant employee into the kitchen. Williams attempted to intervene, but was fatally wounded by Lacaze, who then continued firing at him. Antoinette began demanding money from the Vus, but Chow had already hidden, so the criminal cop brutally attacked 17-year-old Quang Vu and later injured 21-year-old Ha Vu multiple times. After the victims had passed on, Chow tried to call 911 but was unable to get a signal, so Kwok ran to a friend's house to report the crime. The robbers fled, and Antoinette dropped Lacaze off at a nearby apartment complex. She then borrowed a patrol car and returned to the restaurant, posing as a responding officer. She intended to eliminate any remaining witnesses. When Chow saw her, she fled and told arriving officers that Antoinette was responsible for the crime. Detective Eddie Rance believed that Antoinette and Lacaze had planned the robbery to exact revenge on Williams, whom Antoinette thought had shortchanged her. Rance described Antoinette as exceptionally cold-hearted. Antoinette was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Lacaze was also arrested and later confessed to the crimes. Antoinette was the first New Orleans police officer charged with taking the life of a fellow officer. She was given the ultimate penalty on October 20, 1995, and was placed on remanded at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women in St. Gabriel. In 1993, before the Kim An case, Antoinette's father was reported missing. In November 1995, a skull with a bullet hole was found buried under Antoinette's house. Authorities suspect the skull might belong to her father, but no formal identification has been made as Antoinette is already on death row. Christa Gale Pike. Christa Gale Pike is the youngest woman in the U.S. to be given the ultimate penalty since the reinstatement of capital punishment in 1976. At 20, Pike was convicted of brutally attacking her classmate Colleen Slemmer when she was just 18. Born in Beckley, West Virginia, to Carissa Hansen and Emil Glenn Pike, Christa Pike had a troubled upbringing. During her teenage years, her life was difficult and included incidents of aggression. Pike claimed to have been mistreated at various times, but many questioned these claims and saw her as someone prone to exaggeration. Despite being a bright child, Pike's frequent school changes due to her unstable home life led to poor academic performance. In 10th grade, she was sent to a juvenile facility for a year, where she developed an interest in the Job Corps, a program that helps low-income youth with vocational training. In the fall of 1994, Pike joined the Job Corps Center in Knoxville, Tennessee, where she started dating Tatterall Shipp, who was a year younger than her, and they both developed an interest in occult practices. Pike grew envious of her Job Corps classmate, 19-year-old Colleen Slemmer, believing that Slemmer was trying to take her boyfriend, Shipp, away from her. Although Slemmer's friends denied this, Pike, along with 18-year-old Shadala Peterson, planned to invite Slemmer to an isolated steam plant near the University of Tennessee campus on January 12, 1995. The group signed out of their dormitory and led Slemmer to the remote location, pretending they wanted to offer her an illicit substance as a gesture of peace. Once there, Pike and Shipp confronted Slemmer while Peterson kept watch. According to later testimonies, Slemmer was subjected to taunts and physical harm, and a pentagram was carved into her chest over a period of about 30 minutes. Pike ended the confrontation by striking with a large piece of asphalt, which led to her untimely passing. Pike then took a piece of Slemmer's skull as a memento. Pike began showing the skull fragment around the school, and within 30 hours, the group was arrested. The logbook showed that Pike, Shipp, Peterson, and Slemmer had left together, but only 3 returned. Police found the skull fragment in Pike's jacket. Pike later admitted to the police that their intention was to scare Slemmer, but things had gotten out of hand. During her trial, Pike's confession and the evidence against her were crucial. She was charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy. On March 22, 1966, after a brief deliberation, she was found guilty of both charges. Pike was sentenced to 25 years in prison for conspiracy, and then the capital punishment by electrocution. Shipp was given a life sentence with the possibility of parole plus 25 years, while Peterson, who helped the authorities, received probation for his role as an accessory after the fact. After her conviction, Pike made several attempts to appeal her sentence. On June 2001, and again on June 2002, she requested to drop her appeal and asked that her capital punishment be served, and the request was granted, and the date was set for August 19, 2002. However, Pike changed her mind, and her defense team filed a motion to continue the appeal. Initially, this motion was denied, but later a state appeals court agreed to continue the appeal and postponed the execution. On August 24, 2001, Pike, with alleged help from inmate Natasha Cornett, attacked fellow inmate Patricia Jones with a shoestring, nearly choking her until she passed on. In March 2012, it was revealed that Pike had planned an escape with corrections officer Justin Heflin and a New Jersey man named Donald Kohut. Kohut began corresponding with Pike in early 2011, and by July, he was visiting her regularly. Kohut's plan involved creating a duplicate prison key with Heflin's help. The plot was discovered early in 2012, and the attempted escape was thwarted by an investigation involving the Tennessee Department of Corrections, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and the New Jersey State Police. Kohut was arrested and sentenced to 7 years in prison, while Heflin, who cooperated with authorities, lost his job but served no prison time. On August 27, 2020, the Tennessee Attorney General sought a punishment date for Pike. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and other reasons, her lawyers received extensions to contest this. On June 7, 2021, they filed a motion opposing the punishment and requesting a sentence reduction, which was denied. In November 2021, the Tennessee Supreme Court ruled that life sentences without parole for juveniles were unconstitutional. Pike's lawyers used this to argue for a new trial, citing her age and mental health at the time. However, in October 2023, Judge Scott Green denied the request, stating the ruling applied only to juveniles. As of today, no execution date has been set for Pike. If carried out, she would be the first woman to get capital punishment in Tennessee in about 200 years. Celeste Simone Carrington. Celeste Simone Carrington's story is one of unexpected turns. Growing up in a challenging Philadelphia neighborhood, her life took a difficult path at the age of 14 when she became pregnant with her father's child. Sadly, her mother did not step in to offer the support she needed during this tough time. As she grew older, Celeste moved to California, seeking a fresh start, so she enrolled in community college, where she discovered a talent for track and field. Excelling in shot put, she even competed internationally, a bright spot in an otherwise difficult life. But what came next was beyond what anyone could have predicted. Working as a janitor to make ends meet, Carrington found that her salary wasn't enough to cover her needs. In desperation, she began stealing checks, but was eventually caught and fired, though no criminal charges were brought against her. Despite losing her job, she kept a set of keys to the buildings where she had worked. With her life taking a downward spiral after losing her job, Celeste struggled to support her lover and their 3 children, and the pressure became overwhelming. Up until this point, she had no criminal record, but that all changed when she began her crime spree. Stealing checks from companies she still had access to became a routine for Carrington. She even wrote one out to a friend, who ended up being arrested. On January 17, 1992, in Redwood City, California, Carrington took her crimes a step further. She broke into a Dodge car dealership where she had previously worked, knowing the back entrance was often left unlocked. Wearing gloves and armed with a crowbar, she forced open several interior doors and stole a .357 Magnum revolver, along with 5 bullets. On January 26, 1992, in San Carlos, California, Carrington targeted a shoe factory where she had once been a janitor. She borrowed a neighbor's car, drove to the factory, and used a key she had kept to get inside. When she entered, she set off the alarm. Victor Esparza, a janitor there, saw her and asked her to call the building manager. Instead, she pulled out the gun and demanded money. Esparza gave her about $45 and his ATM card, but as she was leaving, she discharged the weapon at him, aiming for his head from just 6 inches away. Carrington later admitted that the act made her feel powerful, and truly, it opened the door to something more sinister. On March 11, 1992, needing more money, Carrington decided to rob a real estate office in Palo Alto, California, where she had once worked. She brought gloves, a screwdriver, and the same .357 Magnum. When her key didn't work, she used the screwdriver to force open the door. After wandering through the building looking for money and finding none, she confronted Caroline Gleason, the property manager, who was still working. Nervous, Carrington fired the weapon at Gleason, then took $400, some keys, and Gleason's car. She attempted to withdraw money from Gleason's accounts, but had limited success. Gleason was the second person's life that Celeste had taken, and he was the first person fatally attacked in Palo Alto that year. On March 16, 1992, Carrington attempted another robbery, this time at a medical facility in Redwood City, California. She brought her gloves and the revolver, but when she found that her key didn't unlock any doors, she hid in a closet. Later, she encountered Dr. Alan Marks, a pediatrician, who struggled with her when she drew her gun. She fired at him twice, but he managed to escape and call 911. Carrington fled the scene with some access cards and prescription drugs, but could not hide for long. Carrington was arrested on March 20, 1992, for taking 2 lives, an attempt to take a life, and multiple burglaries. Police found the .357 handgun, along with evidence from all the crime scenes. Although she confessed during police interviews, she pleaded not guilty in court. The district attorney announced they would seek the maximum sentence, marking the first time the county pursued the ultimate sentence for a woman. On June 16, 1994, the jury found Carrington guilty of all 14 charges and recommended the ultimate penalty, which was confirmed on November 23, 1994. Carrington became the first woman from Northern California sentenced to life since 1941. To date, Celeste Simone Carrington remains incarcerated at the Central California Women's Facility. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.